Welcome to this explainer on what is, without a doubt, one of the most critical, high-stakes topics in the entire Cambridge AS and A-level accounting syllabus. We are talking about the correction of errors using a suspense account. Now, I've spent a lot of time analyzing the examiner reports and the marking schemes for this, and honestly, what's absolutely fascinating is the inevitability of this topic. Seriously, this isn't just a concept that might occasionally pop up on a paper. It appears in literally every single examination series. Every single one. So whether you're aiming for that solid A or pushing for the A star, your ability to navigate the complexities of a suspense account is going to essentially make or break your final grade. Today, we're going to deconstruct those complex, high-tariff questions, the ones worth 9 to 15 marks, we'll master time allocation, and most importantly, we'll deploy the exact critical thinking strategies that actual Cambridge examiners are actively hunting for on your exam papers. Let's get into it.
Okay, so the crucial question we need to tackle right out of the gate is this. Why on earth do students find applying these accounting concepts to unfamiliar contexts so incredibly hard? I mean, think about it. You've studied the textbook, right? You know the double entry rules backward and forward. Yet the second you are faced with a 15-mark structured scenario on the exam, everything just kind of freezes? Well, here's the harsh truth. Surface-level, rote memorization simply isn't enough for Cambridge. They deliberately design these high-tariff questions to pull you completely out of your comfort zone. They strip away all that familiar, neat textbook phrasing, and instead they hand you these messy, real-world accounting disasters that require a deep, conceptual understanding to untangle. If you're just sitting there trying to remember what to debit and what to credit without actually understanding the underlying mechanics of why the suspense account was opened in the first place, you are walking straight into a trap. So throughout this explainer, we're going to focus on rewiring your thinking. We need to move you away from basic factual recall and elevate you to elite-level analytical application.
And look, you don't just have to take my word for it. This quote perfectly validates exactly what we are up against. This is pulled straight from the Cambridge Principal Examiner report. It says, mastering correction of errors using suspense account is essential. This topic appears in every examination series. Guys, the examiners are literally handing us the blueprint here. They're telling us point blank, there's nowhere to hide from this topic. And a golden rule of exam prep, when a principal examiner speaks, we listen. They set the standard. And year after year, they consistently note that candidates who fail to grasp the conceptual flow of error correction lose out on massive marks. It's not just about getting the math right at the end of the day. It's about demonstrating the professional skill of an accountant who can identify an anomaly, correct it systematically, and then actually evaluate its impact on the final financial statements.
So, here is our strategic roadmap for today. We'll start with core principles and cognitive domains. Then we'll jump into a peer deconstruction debate. After that, we'll unlock the method mark strategy, move into an interactive pause and practice workshop, and finally wrap up with a strategy recap. Let's dive into Section 1, Core Principles and Cognitive Domains. Right, to beat this exam, you absolutely have to understand the examiner's lens. Cambridge doesn't just grade whether your final number is correct at the bottom of the page. No, they grade how you arrived at it. They view your answers through these three distinct, heavily structured cognitive domains. Listen closely, because if you only provide the what, but the question is secretly asking for the how and the why, you are leaving huge marks on the table. So, Cambridge uses assessment objectives, AO1, AO2, and AO3. AO1 is your knowledge and understanding. This is your basic factual recall, like simply knowing that an error of omission doesn't actually affect the trial balance. It's essential, sure, but it's low tier. Then we have AO2, which is analysis. This is where you extract data from the stimulus material, interpret the relationships, and execute the actual double entry correction to clear that suspense account. But the top tier, the absolute holy grail for A-star students, is AO3, evaluation. Successful candidates show competence across all three, but AO3, that requires you to question assumptions, to justify your decisions with hard evidence, and to evaluate the ripple effect of these errors on the company's profitability or liquidity. When a command word says to what extent or evaluate, they aren't asking for a list. They are explicitly demanding AO3. The theoretical architecture of a high-scoring answer rests on three main pillars. First up, precise definitions. As examiners constantly warn us, candidates get their terminology confused all the time. You have to be precise. Second, causal relationships. You must be able to explain cause and effect. Think about it. If you correct an overcasting error in the sales day book, how does that systematically ripple through the profit for the year and eventually hit the statement financial position? You have to map that out. Third, and honestly most importantly, cross-topic connections. The syllabus makes it super clear that top-performing students exhibit a connected, conceptual understanding that they can transfer to unfamiliar contexts. What does that mean for you? It means linking your suspense account corrections to other topics like depreciation, control accounts, or inventory valuation. The principal examiner reports highlight over and over that candidates who explicitly reference these cross-topic connections unlock those significantly higher marking bands.
You have to show them that you see the whole board, not just one isolated piece of the puzzle.
Moving on to Section 2, the peer deconstruction debate. To truly understand how to craft a flawless response, we need to look at how different minds approach the exact same high-tariff problem. So I want to introduce you to two archetypal scholars. Let's call them Alex and Sam. Now, Alex is highly technical, fantastic with formulas and raw facts, but struggles deeply with open-ended evaluation. Sam, on the other hand, is a creative, conceptual thinker. Sam's incredibly strong at forming arguments, but frequently loses marks on structural precision and timing. Picture them staring down a brutal 15-mark question on error correction, where the prompt asks them to evaluate the impact of 3 complex accounting errors on a business's final accounts. Alex immediately jumps to the factual approach, arguing, hey, we just need to list the errors, write down the journal entries to clear the suspense account, calculate the new profit, and just move on. Let's keep it fast and factual. But Sam hits the brakes, arguing for the conceptual perspective. Sam says, wait, the command word here is evaluate. If we just list the journal entries, we're only hitting AO1 and AO2. We need context. We need to explain why classifying a capital expenditure as revenue expenditure fundamentally distorts the true and fair view of the financial statements. Alex immediately pushes back, panicking about the strict 18-minute time limit. And this is the classic conflict. But here's the secret. The examiner demands both. They want context-specific analysis justified with evidence, but it has to be delivered with structural precision and speed.
So how do we bridge Alex's factual speed with Sam's conceptual depth? Well, we use a really powerful cognitive tool. Let me introduce a memory hack I like to call the visual story method. Instead of trying to memorize some disjointed random list of debit and credit rules, I want you to encode the suspense account concepts into a logical narrative. Actually, scratch that. Think of the suspense account not as a math problem at all, but rather as a temporary waiting room for lost numbers. When you deconstruct the question, tell the story of the transaction. Where was this number supposed to go? Where did it accidentally end up? And what is the specific vehicle, in this case, the journal entry, needed to drive it back to its correct home? By visualizing the error as a story of a misplaced item finding its way back, you naturally hit Alex's precise journal entries while simultaneously building Sam's context-specific explanation of how the whole financial landscape changes once the item is returned. It's a total game changer.
Let's shift to Section 3, the method, mark strategy, and roadblocks. Quick reminder before we get into the heavy stuff. If you want to secure that top-tier grade, make sure you hit subscribe for Ace the Exam's IGCSE O and A levels at @acetheexam_IGCS and click that notification bell for weekly exam hacks. Okay, let's clear those roadblocks.
Let's check back in on Alex and Sam. We're going to watch them try to actively draft a model response using a standardized 5-step sequence. Step 1, deconstruct the question. Step 2, extract relevant data. Step 3, execute the analysis with clear working notation. Step 4, verify the results. Step 5, present in the correct format. Okay, so they start off strong, but right at Step 3, they hit a massive roadblock. They're trying to link the correction of an opening inventory error to the revised profit for the year, and they just freeze. Alex is staring at the clock, completely panicking because the final balance isn't zeroing out perfectly. Meanwhile, Sam is off writing this massive rambling paragraph that is completely losing the mathematical thread. The paragraph linking is an absolute mess, and the timing constraint is just crushing them. They're both stuck in this endless pursuit of the perfect final number, and in doing so, they are totally forgetting how Cambridge actually marks these papers.
This is exactly where we need to step back and look at the process. The golden rule of Cambridge accounting is this: process over perfection. I'm going to say that again. Process over perfection. Marks are awarded for clear, systematic processing. This is what we call the method mark strategy. Look, if you make a tiny arithmetic error in Step 1, but you carry that flawed number through perfectly logical, conceptually sound accounting procedures in the subsequent steps, the examiner will award you own figure method marks. You do not lose all 15 marks because of one silly calculator slip. No way. But, and this is absolutely crucial, you only get those method marks if your working is crystal clear, sequentially laid out, and uses the correct notation. If you panic like Alex and just scramble numbers everywhere, or you write a vague essay like Sam without clear analytical steps, the examiner literally can't award you those marks.
Section 4, the interactive pause and practice workshop.
Okay, it is time to step into the arena. We've discussed the theory, we've debated the layout, and now we really need to see how it applies in practice. But before we look at our first challenge, please heed this massive examiner alert straight from the source material. Principal examiner reports revealed that candidates consistently, and I mean constantly, confuse key terminology. You must always define terms before using them in extended responses. For example, if you're talking about an error of commission versus an error of principal, do not just assume the examiner knows that you know the difference. Explicitly state it. Write something like, "This is an error of principal because a motor vehicle, which is a non-current asset, was incorrectly entered into the motor expenses account, which is a revenue account." Boom. That one sentence right there locks in your AO1 knowledge marks and sets a concrete foundation for your AO3 evaluation.
Let's try a quick visual challenge. I want you to spot the flaw. I'm going to give you a virtual 60-second countdown in your head. Think about these top 3 traps set by examiners. Trap 1. Answers are too vague. Writing a sentence like, "The suspense account fixes errors," is literally a 0-mark sentence. Examiners want specific details on exactly which errors. Trap 2. Forgetting format and presentation. If you don't include dates, narratives in the journal, or proper headings, your professional skills marks are instantly gone. Just evaporated. Trap 3. Answers are not specific to the context given. This one is huge. If the scenario is about a manufacturing business, giving a generic textbook answer about a retail shop is a fatal error. You must extract evidence from the specific stimulus material they provided you. If the prompt mentions factory machinery, your answer must explicitly evaluate the impact on manufacturing overheads. Make it relevant.
And this framework brilliantly illustrates how we elevate an answer from just good to elite, especially when asked to evaluate alternatives. Consider this comparison. A weak candidate will only identify similarities. They'll write something like, "Both option A and option B increase profit." Okay, sure, but a top-scoring candidate deploys a rigorous comparative analysis framework. They identify similarities and differences, and they do it using comparative connectives like whereas or conversely. But most importantly, they support every single comparison with hard numerical evidence. Here's what that sounds like. While correcting both errors increases the gross profit, fixing the inventory valuation has a significantly larger material impact, an increase of $5,000 compared to the $200 discount received error. Therefore, ensuring inventory accuracy is of higher relevant importance. Do you hear the difference? That is exactly how you secure maximum evaluation marks. Let's bring it all home with Section 5, Strategy Recap and Final Breakdown.
Let's look at how our scholars, Alex and Sam, evolved after applying all of this. The transformation is pretty incredible. Alex realized that throwing down raw data without narrative context leaves massive AO3 marks behind. Sam realized that writing beautiful concepts without structured, step-by-step mathematical evidence collapses under examiner scrutiny. They learned to synthesize the deconstruct, solve, evaluate framework. So, to ensure you leave this explainer fully equipped, let's summarize everything into 3 concrete core pillars. Pillar 1, the 3-step question scan. Before you pick up your pen to write a single number, scan for the command word, the content knowledge required, and any hidden constraints. Pillar 2, the paragraph balance formula. You have to balance factual steps with context. Every paragraph needs a clear accounting action, mathematical evidence, and the evaluative impact. Pillar 3, the last 5 minutes review checklist. Never, ever submit without checking for proper formats and ensuring your working is crystal clear for those sweet, sweet method marks.
So after all of that, the ultimate question is this: what is your target grade? Crushing these exams isn't about luck. It requires consistent strategy. I want you to go to the comments right now and declare your target grade. Put it out there. And to make sure you actually achieve it, hit that subscribe button for Ace the Exam's IGCSE O and A levels at acetheexam_IGCSE. Turn on the notification bell so you are immediately alerted when we drop our next masterclass. But before you go, I want you to think about this. If a suspense account is just a temporary hiding place for our mistakes, what other invisible errors are currently sitting in your financial statements completely undetected? Keep questioning, keep practicing, and we'll see you in the next explainer.